Well, folks, here we are again for the weekly forecast. Before we get to the main brunt of a possible snow forecast, let's look at what's happened during this last week. We talked about the cold air moving into the region as we got into this week. It did arrive about 24 hours later than initially forecasted by the models, but the result was the same. Little in the way of any significant moisture, a few isolated sprinkles to light snow showers in portions of northern Nebraska, where almost everybody received nothing in the way of significant moisture. That did help at least with harvest activity weather, but in the same token, that cold air really has dropped our average temperatures for the month in relation to normal. During the first 15 days of the month, pretty much everybody in the state was well above normal in terms of temperatures. This cold stretch this last 10 days has dropped western Nebraska to around 3 degrees above or below normal for the month of October. Eastern Nebraska, we're now running 1 to 2 degrees above normal for the month. But with the cool temperatures expected over this next few days and through the end of the month, where expectations will be that October will come in somewhere between a half a degree above normal to about a degree below normal across eastern Nebraska, and we'll be looking at 3 to 4 degrees below normal for western portions of the state. Now, there is a significant storm system that is going to try to develop over the central Rockies, and it's going to bring some exceptionally cold air back into the center part of the country as we move through next week. And so let's take a look at the forecast and see what we might expect in terms of its placement of this storm and its impacts on Nebraska in terms of precipitation. First of all, the trough that brought in all this cold weather is now retreating toward the northeast very rapidly, and so with this warmer air building in and a trough starting to come into the Pacific Northwest, it's going to dive into the Intermountain region. It's going to start lifting up some very nice warm air into our region compared to what we've been experiencing the last few days. So for western Nebraska, we're looking at 60s today. Across extreme northeastern Nebraska, still catching a little bit of this cool air. Temperatures are going to be limited. We're probably looking at the upper 40s to the lower 50s, but no precipitation to speak of. Now, as we go into tomorrow, we're going to start to see this system starting to take shape. In advance of it, we're going to see some fairly nice weather. It looks like 50s to mid-50s across extreme northeastern Nebraska, across southern Nebraska, easily into the 60s, and I wouldn't be shocked if we see an isolated 70 in southwestern Nebraska. Now, as we go into Monday, this system really starts to dig down into the Great Basin region. It's getting stronger. It's going to have time to lift up moisture into the central and southern plains. So we might see some precipitation breaking out late Monday across the northern portion of the Panhandle. If it occurs during the overnight hours, we might see a little bit of snow, but more importantly, as we get into Tuesday, the system starts to make its bend down into the western Texas, and it'll start to shift toward the northeast. And therefore, with this moisture, we're going to see some upslope flow, and there's very distinct possibility that the northern half of the Panhandle could easily see 3 to 6 inches of snowfall. Please pay attention to the weather, because the placement of this storm system will have a lot to do with the accumulations in western Nebraska. If this system doesn't dig as far deep or down southward, we could see much more significant snowfall in eastern Wyoming and western Nebraska, but right now it just looks like a moderate snow event. Further east, it looks to be all rain. And we may only see snowfall at night if there is a mixture of rain and snow, but no significant accumulations are expected with this system. Now, as we get into Wednesday, this first system will start to pull east. It's going to pull a little bit of cool air into our region, but more importantly, there's another system that's going to come in and reinforce this trough. And as we get into Thursday, you'll see that this trough kind of broadens out, digs in, and this piece of energy shifts through, will give us another shot of moisture in eastern Nebraska with the potential to see some accumulating snowfall from northeast Nebraska through east central Nebraska. We'll just have to wait and see. On Friday, the system starts to pass to our east, and a very cold fresh is in its wake. So in terms of temperatures, it's a roller coaster ride. 60s this weekend for western Nebraska, cooling into the 30s across the northern portion of the state, and possible snow. Then we start the gradual warm-up before another cool down next Friday. In terms of the 8 to 14-day forecast, the cold air starts to shift to the east of us, and in terms of precipitation, likewise, precipitation moves east of the state.